They expected punishment. They prepared for hunger. They feared brutality. But nothing prepared them for this. When German women prisoners arrived in American camps during World War II, they braced themselves for cruelty. Instead, they were handed soap, clean towels, hot showers. Some of them thought it was a trick. Others believed it was temporary, a calm before something far worse. Because in wartime, kindness can be more terrifying than cruelty. What these women experienced inside American prisoner camps would challenge everything they believed about their enemy and leave behind a story history rarely tells. This is the forgotten World War II story of German women prisoners in America and the reality that shocked them all. By the early 1940s, Europe was consumed by war. Cities burned, families vanished, and survival became a daily gamble. German women found themselves caught in the chaos, some as military auxiliaries, some as nurses, clerks, radio operators, and others simply trapped in collapsing territories. When Allied forces advanced, thousands were captured. For many of these women, surrender did not bring relief, it brought fear. They had heard stories of enemy camps, stories of humiliation and suffering. And when they were told they were being sent across the Atlantic to America, their fear only grew. America was not just far away, it was unknown. And in war, the unknown is terrifying. The journey itself felt endless. Crowded ships, cold nights, the constant sound of the ocean. Some women believed they would never return. Others whispered that American camps were worse than anything in Europe. No one knew the truth. They were warned not to expect mercy, not to expect dignity, certainly not to expect comfort. So when the ships finally docked and the prisoners were transported inland, many women mentally prepared for the worst days of their lives. But the first surprise came quickly. The camps looked ordinary. Barbed wire surrounded them, yes. Guards stood watch. Rules were strict. But something felt wrong. There were proper buildings, medical stations, organized kitchens. And then came the moment that left many women confused. They were told to shower. In Europe, water was scarce, soap was a luxury, hot showers were almost non-existent. So when American guards handed them soap bars, clean clothes, and towels, disbelief spread through the group. Some women hesitated. They feared poison, they feared humiliation, they feared something worse. But nothing happened. The water was warm, the soap was real, and no one shouted, no one rushed them. For the first time in months, sometimes years, these women stood under clean water, washing away dirt, sweat, and fear. Many cried, not from pain, but from confusion, because enemies weren't supposed to do this. As days turned into weeks, the reality became harder to ignore. They were fed regularly. Meals were simple but filling. Medical care was provided. Some women were assigned light work, laundry, kitchens, clerical tasks, nothing close to forced labor. The camps followed the Geneva Convention, and the Americans took that seriously. But kindness created a new kind of tension, because kindness forces questions. Many prisoners struggled emotionally. They had grown up believing America was brutal, cruel, and inhumane. Propaganda had painted a clear picture of the enemy. But now that picture was cracking. Guards spoke calmly. Doctors treated them gently. Rules were enforced, but without cruelty. Some women began to wonder, if this is the enemy, what were we fighting for? That thought was dangerous and deeply unsettling. Small details left lasting impressions: the abundance of food, the cleanliness, the organization. Some women noticed that even American guards lived modestly, not extravagantly, as propaganda had claimed. Books were available, music could be heard, Letters were allowed. Slowly, the camps became places of reflection. Not freedom, but not the nightmare they had expected. Despite the relative calm, fear never disappeared. Many prisoners believed this treatment was temporary. They waited for punishment. They waited for revenge. They waited for the moment kindness would turn into cruelty. But it never came. And that uncertainty became its own form of torment. As World War II came to an end, rumors spread. Germany had fallen. The war was lost. For these women, relief mixed with dread. What would happen now? Would they be punished? Would they be sent home? Would this strange chapter simply end? Eventually, many German women prisoners were released and repatriated. They returned to a shattered homeland, cities in ruins, families missing, futures uncertain. But they carried something unexpected with them, a memory, not of cruelty, but of contradiction. They had seen the enemy, and the enemy had not matched the story. For decades, these experiences were rarely discussed. History focused on battles, generals, and destruction. The quiet stories, especially those involving compassion during war, were pushed aside because they complicated the narrative, and complicated stories are harder to tell. This is not a story about who was right or wrong. It is a story about humanity under extreme conditions. It reminds us that war does not erase morality, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon is dignity. These German women entered America as prisoners. They expected suffering. Instead, they encountered something far more unsettling, a reality that challenged everything they believed. And perhaps that is why this story remains largely forgotten, because it proves that even in the darkest chapters of history, humanity can still survive. History doesn't always hide its darkest secrets. Sometimes it hides its most uncomfortable truths.